This is episode 57, Oral Facial Examination featuring Amy Graham.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of SLP's Wine and Cheese. I'm Maria.
I'm Deb.
And here's our fabulous guest,
Amy Graham. Hi, everybody.
Welcome to our show, Amy. We are so excited to have you.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm a big fan of your Instagram.
Same here.
Oh, that's awesome. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, I love all of your videos. And you inspired me to buy the, how do you say the name of the cards?
Oh, Bjorn speech sound cues.
Or speech sound cues. Yeah.
Okay.
So great.
Yeah. So before we get too much into our chat, we're switching it up. We have White Claw Hard Seltzer. It's raspberry flavored. And
You're wondering what that is.
yeah.
It's spiked sparkling water with a hint of raspberry.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only 5% alcohol.
Right.
So a little lighter, I believe, than wine.
Right.
So, we're taking it easy. And lately, I've been getting into these hard seltzers, and I do enjoy them. And this one I really enjoy because it's not like overly sweet with this raspberry flavor because nobody wants that.
Yeah.
So I definitely vote drink it.
Yeah, I
Light,
will drink it too.
not
Cheers.
overly sweet. It's telling me it's only got 2 grams of carbs and 100 calories. I feel
Sweet.
light drinking it. So, yeah.
And they're not even a sponsor.
They're not a sponsor,
No.
but they should be.
Mm-hmm.
And we paired it with this Parmesan cheese that in this kale salad that Deb has made for us with some grilled shrimp.
Yeah.
It's really quite a combo.
Yeah.
That actually sounds really good.
What do you have, Amy?
I have some Apothic Red. I actually poured it into a wine glass. So
Oh.
it's not in my mug anymore
Mm.
because it is available at Costco.
Nice.
Nice.
It's cheap. And my cheese does the cheese powder on my popcorn count.
Yes,
That's what I got.
absolutely.
I like
Okay.
it.
Excellent.
Popcorn is a nice healthy snack.
I love it. It's my weakness.
Great.
I
So
love popcorn and pretzels. Those are my favorite snacks, I think.
does Nutella count as a snack or no?
Well,
Marble.
I might feel a little bit extra guilty if I had Nutella.
Oh, well.
As a whole snack, as much as I
As a whole
eat pretzels and popcorn.
Yes. All right. So we want to get to know Amy a little bit more. So Amy, if you can give us a quick little summary about yourself, and then we'll get to know you a little bit more.
Sure. So I live in Colorado. I'm in Colorado Springs, and I have a private practice that is, I like to call it a boutique private practice because basically that's, I think, just code for small. It's just me that works here. I work out of my own home, so I have like a little therapy space in my house. And I have been doing this for about 3 years. I recently developed an oral mechanism exam form that I'm really excited about. And I don't know, what else do you want to know about me?
Yeah, right. I have the oral mech exam. I love it. I recommend it to every SLP, but I've mostly been recommending it to new CFs.
Oh, awesome. That's great.
Yeah, I think it's an experience when you go in there and everything's brand new, and at least you have a paper that's a roadmap that's like, I know what I'm doing my first session.
Well, and that's kind of why I developed it, because I wanted one for myself.
Right.
I was just wanting, we have all those textbooks and some of those, assessment materials from grad school, but they're so lengthy and these huge long, like 10 pages long where you got to write everything out and narrative style. And I just wanted something simple, checklist style, just like boom, 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 let's hit all the majors of an oral mech exam. And I couldn't find one. So I kind of started making one on my own. And then the more I talked about it, it seemed like there were a lot of SLPs out there who either felt the same way, like they didn't have a good form themselves, or that they didn't feel comfortable really giving a thorough oral motor exam or an oral mech exam. And if they did, then they weren't quite sure how to interpret some of the findings. So that's kind of the genesis of this form that's been out there.
I like that you saw that there was a need for something, and instead of just being like, I don't know what to do, what do I do? I guess nothing. And you took it into your own hands and you made something yourself, and now I'm sure a lot of people are finding it useful. So
Yeah, I've gotten a lot of really good feedback. I'm really, so far I've gotten really good feedback. I'm really pleased with the way it's gone.
Right, and shared that information too.
Yeah.
Even just hoard it for yourself. Look at you being so giving. So going back to the oral mech.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what? Before we do that, I want to know more about Amy.
Okay.
Okay.
So tell us, where did you go to school? I guess undergrad and grad.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Southern California, and so I went to Cal State Fullerton in Orange County. So it's a commuter school, so I didn't live there. I kind of commuted every day, but I did undergrad there, and I did graduate school there too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was great.
Deb and I both stayed within the same school too. We both went to St. John's. That's fine.
Yeah.
I've been to Colorado, and I met so many people from Colorado, and a lot of them are not originally from Colorado. Very rare. I think I met one person the whole 4 days that was like, I am an original person from Colorado. What is that, Coloradian?
Coloradan, maybe? I don't know. But it's true. I think the natives are a little tired of all of, us moving in, enjoying their beautiful state. But I've been here 13 years, so I kind of feel like I'm almost a native, although I'm sure the true natives would say no way, but.
Right.
That's close enough. We'll take it.
I think so.
Good amount of time.
I mean, I rarely meet people in New York who are actually from New York outside of Staten Island. People don't move there from other places.
Yeah.
I am here now in Brooklyn.
Right. Maria's moving to Brooklyn. Oh my goodness. I think I broke that news forever for her.
Well, by the time the episode airs, it'll be more closer to happening.
Right.
So,
But you heard it here first, folks.
Yes.
Maria is crossing the bridge.
that's right. And
When is that going to happen?
probably in like the not spring, fall, winter. Yeah, just enjoy
That's exciting.
summer for now, and then move on to a different borough for the
Oh,
new.
I'm thrilled.
I bet.
Yeah, it's good times. Anyway, less about me now.
Yeah, more about Amy.
More about Amy.
Yeah.
So then you moved to Colorado right after school, or tell us a little bit about
No, I'm old. So I moved here when I was pregnant with my second child. So yeah, I graduated back in the 90s forever ago. So I have, I practiced for, gosh, I want to say 8 to 10. I'm trying to do the math in my head, which I am not good at. So I want to say about 8 years before I started having kids. Then I stayed home a lot of those years and started taking some private clients on the side. And then once my baby, I have 3 kids. So my baby, who is now 10, once she was in first grade, that's when I decided to go back to work. And I actually started started back at work at their school that they worked at, or that they went to. And so I was there for just about a year, and started kind of doing the private practice thing on the side. And then it just took off from there. And
How did you like being in the same school as your kids?
it was so much fun.
Yeah.
We got to carpool every day, and I was only there part-time, so like 2.5 days a week, but it was so much fun. I loved it. And just knowing all their teachers really well, and it was great. It was nothing but a good experience.
Yeah, I remember as a kid, everyone who had at least a family member who worked in the school, like no one saw that as problematic. It was just only cool. Like, that's Darcy's mom. That's, like,
oh, wow.
So I bet that was fun for your kids as well.
It was, they were all in elementary school at that point. So, once now my youngest is going into high school, she probably would have a different opinion about that, but.
Right. There's mom again looking at
Yeah, right.
lunch.
Exactly. Peeking around the corner.
Not to school when you're 15. Okay.
So were you predominantly in the pediatric setting for the majority of your career?
Yeah, I mean, I did my CFY in a public school, and I was in quite a few public schools. I worked in somebody else's private practice for a time. I did some, on-call hours every week at an acute rehab facility, because I thought I really wanted to work with adults. And then I found out that was crazy stressful after doing that, like on the weekends and after school in the evenings. And I was exhausted. So I didn't do that very long because I had my first baby and I wanted to cut back on my hours and stay home. So I just did that for a little bit. But yeah, most of my experience in the last 20 years of being an SLP has been in the schools.
Nice. Yeah, I hear what you're saying about the adult rehab setting. I spent a fair amount of time in that setting for the past 3 years, and it was really great for me when I was working there assisting a main SLP.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of took the stragglers, I followed her instructions, I was here periodically. But then once that individual left and they were like, "You've been here the longest, you're in charge," I was like, I cannot do this. This is not the job for me. I do not know enough. I do not have enough experience. This is crazy. I mean, just to know insurance, the different types, like at that rate, I was like, this is not going to work.
Yeah, it's a whole other beast for sure.
Yeah. So
sounds a lot. I'm going to take a sip of this seltzer, just cool myself off listening to all this stuff. You know,
but I did like the adults. They were fun.
No, working with adults is great.
Mm-hmm.
I like that you could really explain what you're doing and
right.
None of that fluff. Oh, we gotta play a game to work on tongue tips.
Yeah.
We're here with the adult. You're like, this is what we're doing. Ready, go.
Right. And the only motivation I had to do was to have a conversation with them because that's all they wanted to do was just chat. Meanwhile, today I had 72 toys, which was not
right. You don't really have to trick adults into doing what you want them to do most of the time.
Exactly. And they can't run away most of the time.
Right. Exactly. Well, and it was tired. It was mentally exhausting too, going from working with, kids who were between the ages of 5 and 12, or sometimes it was in high school, and then going to work with elderly patients who are, it's completely, you're running the whole gamut of our scope of practice. And it was hard to keep up with the, evidence-based practice and, the research. And so, yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah,
can imagine that being a lot. So now currently you're working in a private practice setting, which works out for you because you don't have a long commute, right?
I have about 2 minutes from my bedroom. It's wonderful. Yeah.
Wow. That's impressive. Do you have a separate entrance to your office or does everyone go through your house?
I don't. I know there are some downsides. I've had some people ask me but you have people in your house? How weird is that? And, I really haven't had many issues with that. Most all my families are extremely respectful of, our property and our space.
Right.
But yeah, it's not for everyone. I really do. I have people in my house a lot. And so the nice thing is my main level, because it's in Colorado and a lot of the houses here, most houses have basements. Mm-hmm. And so we kind of have the basement and the second story, and this main level just kind of stays nice and tidy. So I can, keep it nice for everybody. But yeah, it is definitely not for everybody. I don't have a separate entrance. People kind of come through my front door, and my living room is the waiting room.
That's what my next question was going to be: is where do parents wait? So the living room. That's nice.
Yeah. So in the living room, or I have French doors. You guys can see them behind me. Those French doors right there. But I have seating in my office too. So some parents, if I've got really little guys, 3 is when I usually start seeing kids. At 3 years old, then a lot of times parents will come in, and I kind of go with what the parents want to do, unless there are some significant behavioral issues to deal with.
Right. Do you have coffee table books, and do you think about that now that you have a wait?
Oh man, no, that's a great idea. Deb, who was that? Deb or Marie? I couldn't see. Whoever said that.
That was me.
Deb.
I need to think about that.
Yeah, I could send people messages too, just the art of tidying up, or whatever you think somebody needs to know more about. You can just put it on the table.
I was thinking parenting magazines, or even the Actual Leader, where you get all of them, and sometimes what do I do with this? Why not?
I think I'm just going to subscribe to some magazines that I want to read, and then just leave them out. And then, business expensive.
That's a great idea. I like that.
This episode of SLP's Wine and Cheese is brought to you by Fusion Web Clinic. It's an all-in-one practice management software designed specifically for pediatric speech therapists, physical therapists, and occupational therapists. To learn more and check out Fusion's library of free resources, visit them online at www.fusionwebclinic.com/cheese. And if you sign up, you get a free demo of the software. Mention the SLP's Wine and Cheese podcast to receive a $50 credit off your first month.
So then, before the oral mech, though, you started Instagram, and you feature videos of yourself doing speech therapy sessions. And so what made you go to that social media route?
You know, this is going to be weirdly coincidental, but honestly, Deb, I saw you post a lot of your therapy videos, and I thought that's a great idea because I think there are so many, especially, there's a younger demographic on Instagram. It tends to be, I feel like the grandma on there, but I feel like there's a lot of CFs and newer SLPs that are on Instagram. And I just feel like seeing in real life what therapy actually looks like, and different therapy can look different depending on the SLP and the kids that you're working with. It doesn't all have to look the same, and it can all be effective. And so I thought, just to kind of show that, I specialize in speech sound disorders, so let me show a clip of how I work on, consonant cluster reduction, or a phonology session, or an apraxia session. And I just kind of put it out there, not thinking anything of it. And then I got such a huge response that I just kind of decided every week I would try to put at least a few clips on there of me doing a particular type of therapy.
I love it.
Nice.
Do you feel like it motivates you a little bit more to get through your day?
It totally does. In fact, I love to, that's the nice thing about only specializing in speech sound disorders. I feel like it's relatively simple to lesson plan because I've got my targets. The games can be whatever. I can, as long as I get a ton of trials of a particular target for that child, we can play whatever game. So, but it totally motivates me to be creative and think, oh, okay, let me show this particular methodology for this child because this really might help another SLP. So yeah, I'm constantly kind of thinking critically through my day.
Right.
I like that.
Yeah, I feel like it definitely
inspiring me, and maybe I should be making more videos.
I want lots more people to do it. I think Amy's got a great point that that all SLPs are different in their own way, but all the therapy is still effective. But still, we do a lot of similar things, like all of us. I'm not just saying like you and I, just because we both have the videos out.
I've seen a lot of Amy's videos, and that's why I think we've messaged before about prom too and stuff. So it's very interesting.
Yeah,
maybe I will do that.
Yeah, so it's nice to see not only like everyone is unique, but then also like we are all doing kind of the same like sing-song kind of things, the repetitions, the cards and stuff. So it's nice to it's good for people who feel like they're lost or they need ideas, but I think it's also good for people to feel reassured that they're not the only ones doing certain things.
Yeah.
Very true. And I thought too, when, just in graduate school, you hear about the theory and, what we should be working on, but the how is very infrequently shown. Okay, like, great, I get that that's the target we're supposed to work on, but how do you pull that out of a kid who is 4 years old and timid and shy and doesn't want to talk to you? And so I feel like seeing it in real life just helps those real life questions.
Yeah, and I hope to see more SLPs do it in the future as well.
Me too.
Yeah, why are we hiding? We should not be hiding. We should all be like, let's get on the same page. Let's all be inspired and not so like dragged down. I feel like I hear so often about burnout and things like that, and I'm not saying that I'm definitely not immune to burnout. I'm sure it could happen to anybody. But I do think like having a community and having videos and making the speech world smaller could lend itself to decreasing that type of stress within the career.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
All right, that's my new goal then for September, though.
Good.
Right.
Speech videos. So
Speech
then
videos.
check, what do you think makes a great, thorough oral mechanism? Oh wait, actually before that, what do you call it?
Okay, I know. This is such a terrible. So I originally it is called the oral facial exam, and there's no V. It's oral facial exam. That's what's on the page, just because that's what all my paperwork tended to always have. But I mean, it's the same. Oral mech exam, oral motor exam. I feel like they all kind of mean the same thing. We're just looking at, it's whatever, informal observation about how your articulators move and their function, and how whether or not they could be impacting speech. So I call it oral facial exam.
Oral facial. When we were in school, it was called oral peripheral exam.
That too. I know. I remember that one too.
But I don't hear that one anymore.
I don't really hear that one either. I like oral facial exam too.
Well, I know, because I feel like I called it oral facial exam because we're also observing the face for asymmetries and things like that. So it's not just oral. It's, you're kind of observing the whole face. So
Right.
There you go.
I feel like I tend to say oral mechanism exam, but I'm open to any title.
Yeah, and I feel like most people probably say oral mech exam,
Okay.
And so, yeah, I should probably rename it, Deb. I don't know.
No. I like oral facial.
I like oral facial too.
So then now, what are some things that can be revealed in the oral mech exam, or like maybe top 3 things that you look for when you gain a new client for speech sound production?
Well, I feel, first of all, I just wanted to say too, before I do an oral mech exam, I always make sure I have a really good case history on the child too.
Yeah,
because a lot of times things might pop up and you're going, oh my gosh, there seems like there's some weakness. And I think did you just have a podcast about this recently?
Yes.
I think I started listening to it. I didn't get to finish it. But it is so important because a lot of times, if I see something in the case history or the medical history or developmental history, I might highlight a couple things like, okay, really look at this and see if this is impacting their speech. And so I feel like that is kind of the first thing you should always be doing, is getting a thorough case history. But as far as, gosh, the top 3, that's a really good question, because I think sometimes in your mind you think you might have a top 3. And then if you do that, like a really thorough oral facial exam, like this checklist, and you follow all of it, things might pop out that you wouldn't even expect. Sometimes, you're finding maybe some weaknesses or absent weaknesses. Sometimes you see a child who looks really hypotonic and you're like, oh man, this kid's probably got dysarthria, and come to find out, what, their strength is actually pretty good. It's just they're at rest, they look like they've got low tone. A lot of times though, I think tonsils can be a big issue with some kids too, because I've had a few that have sounded really hyponasal, and parents say, we've taken her in and she doesn't have any allergies or anything, and then I look in their mouth and like, wow, those tonsils are enormous. That might be an issue. Talk to your ENT. So I think first of all, I'm looking for anything structural, and then secondly, you're looking for functional too. So not just how things look and how the palate looks or the tongue looks, but how are they moving during speech? And this form should help you kind of walk through each step to look at each of the articulators relatively thoroughly.
Right, it really does. And it made me think, wow, I haven't done this enough. I was like, wait. Because if someone were to ask me the question I asked you, I'd say the first thing I want to know if this kid has a tongue tie. I always am like, let me get that out of the way, because I just learned over time, like I have found 6 months later that a child had a tongue tie. So now I just never want that to happen again. So as soon as I see a kid, I'm like, put your tongue on your nose.
Yeah, right.
Because I want to know, because I don't want to be that I keep wanting to call myself a loser for not having seen it, but like I don't want that to happen to me again.
I think it's more common than we realize, because I worked for a contract company, and I would fill in when I was in California. I'd fill in for a lot of SLPs. And, so, you just kind of had to pick up where they left off with therapy. And sometimes I would have to go back and say, okay, well, here's this child's, speech issue. Okay, well, let me go back and check what the oral mech exam found, and come to find out one wasn't done. And so, which, I think it's more common than we think. So I feel like part of my, my mission is to kind of spread the word. Like if you have a child with any kind of reduced intelligibility or speech sound issue, always do one, because you might find something that never would have occurred to you could be impacting their speech.
Right. Exactly.
It's a great tip.
Yeah.
Cheers to that tip.
Cheers to everyone. Yeah.
Cheers.
And then also everyone if you're listening to this in the summer and you're thinking, I got to get prepared for the next school year, or, just coming clients, if you're in a private practice, just, you might feel overwhelmed, but if you just start off with the oral facial examination that Amy has prepared, then you already have like your first session done.
I was going to say that. Yeah, I feel like if anything that alleviates some pressure, because what do I do? It's like do an oral mechanism exam, oral facial exam, whatever you want to call it. And because that's such a great assessment and such a tool, and also, why not? If you're not sure what to do for therapy yet, keep assessing.
Yeah, do an all about me worksheet and Amy's speech oral facial exam. And she's got diagrams on there too, and it's very easy, like check marks and stuff. So it's not like look at the cheeks. Like,
right, yeah.
It's not like that.
Hello there, cheeks.
Right, yeah.
Right.
And you're like, okay, those are cheeks, got it. Check. Cheeks are there.
Client demonstrates cheeks.
Right. Is there a tongue present?
There is a tongue there. I am winning. No.
Yeah.
So it's just telling you what to look for with each articulator. I like that.
Well, and that's kind of why I decided, I thought, okay, well, I'll put together this checklist and, is there good symmetry? Okay, how's the range of movement with this task and that task? And then, the more I put it out there to say, okay, it's almost ready, I've got so many messages from people saying, okay, but can you explain it a little bit? Like what, how do you really assess that? And so I thought, okay, I need to go a lot more in depth. So, I've got, I think like 4 full pages full of basically that kind of align with the checklist to say, okay, this is what you're looking for. This is how you assess it. And then at the very end, okay, if you're seeing, A, B, and C, this is what you might want to think about, or might, maybe it's a referral to an ENT or, a neurologist even. Sometimes, we can find some of those first red flags for some issues that a child may have that, even pediatricians miss. I recently did an oral facial. I keep wanting to say oral mech too. An oral facial exam on a child, and we found some hypernasality, and it looked to me like there was not really good velar movement during phonation. And come to find out, we got a referral to our cleft palate team, and sure enough, there was some VPD, multiple dysfunction. So, sometimes we're the first people that notice that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah. Same thing happened to me with a client that I had, and actually multiple times it's happened. There was one child that I had who I was like, this child's not progressing because they have a tongue tie. And then the special ed coordinator went to me. She was like, well, have you read his IEP? And then I was like, yes. But she said it in a way where I was like, well, I clearly missed something.
Right.
Why are you saying it to me like that? And she's like, he had complete oral reconstructive surgery. He goes to doctors regularly. If that were to be the case, then they would have seen it. And I was like, but here's a picture. I'm showing it to you now. And then sure enough, I told the mom, and then the mom went to the doctor, and he had to keep at it lasered, and voila. I mean, right away, all he wanted to do was talk about the way it tastes to have the stitches in his mouth.
Oh, okay.
But then once we got past that, everything else improved pretty rapidly.
And it's amazing, isn't it? And I think sometimes we as SLPs think, oh, I'm sure they're specialists, they know what they're talking about. But, the longer I've been doing this, I'm going on 20 years now, the more I find that, ENTs, pediatricians, they know so little about the things that we know a lot about. And so I think we need to be a little more confident in our referrals. And if, you're really confident that, okay, this is an appropriate referral, and you get, like, for example, I've sent kids, a hyponasal child, huge tonsils, couldn't nose breathe at all. Complete mouth breather. And an ENT said, no, she's not hyponasal, she's fine. And I asked the parent, well, did he talk to her? He's like, well, no, they never talked to her. Well, probably not a good referral. So you need to go see a different specialist. So I think we need to trust our instincts a lot of times more than we do.
Yeah, I had a kid with a submucosal cleft and told the parents, I was like, I can't really tell you for sure, but based on my findings, I'm just quite confident that this is here. So let's rule it out before we do speech therapy, which will be a waste of time. So they sent him to this ENT, and I couldn't wait to hear back from this guy. He called me and he was like, listen, there's nothing there. The kid didn't talk that much, but he's fine. And there's no way he was going to let me scope him. I looked at him, he's good. And I was like, is this guy kidding me? And then I Googled him and I saw his picture. I'm like, this guy is way too attractive to be right. He just probably is just like this Upper West Side doctor who just like has people coming in and out, just telling them what they want to hear. And like, I don't even know. So then I was like, no, you got to go to the craniofacial team at NYU. Turns out I was right. Hot guy wrong, Deb right.
But I feel like this is like an ENT confession time, because I too had a hyper nasal kid, and I'm like, something's not right, go to the ENT. ENT said everything was good, and I'm just like, no, it can't be. It can't. And then, I don't really remember the end of that story.
This is something I learned too. I think when we talk to each other and you find an SLP that has a specialty, like I've spoken to the SLP on our craniofacial team here in town, and I've had specific questions. She has given me such great advice. Like she even told me, you can send a child, if it's hyponasal, send them to a pediatric ENT, but if it's hypernasal, please send them to a team, because that's who needs to see that kid. And so, those are things that I don't think a lot of SLPs know that unless you specialize.
Yeah, that's my new advice starting a year ago. I didn't know that. Just send them to a craniofacial team. Don't go to an ENT. Don't go to a pediatrician.
Well, unless they're hyponasals.
Totally.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Correction.
There's another hot ENT on Staten Island. That guy. How do you say that name?
Keiko? I never heard of him.
Oh, well, you should go check him out.
Well,
You
maybe
should find out.
will. Because I have never referred anyone to him.
Yeah,
so.
well, you should. I went once with my cousin.
Okay.
Anywho, so what led you to specialize in speech sound disorders of all of the gamut of things that you could be a professional in?
Well, first of all, I think originally that's all I thought SLPs did was like fix R's and S's, because my sister had to have speech therapy when she was little. And so I had to get, I got drugged to all her speech therapy sessions. I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. And so it's kind of in the back of my mind. And then, later down the road, I decided to go ahead and major in it. Halfway through the major, I found out you had to have a master's degree. So that was kind of okay, I guess it's more schooling for me. And then I think the speech sound disorders part has always appealed to I like the mechanical nature of when your mouth does this, your voice does this is what happens. Like you can perceptually tell what's going on in that mouth. Like if you hear a lateral lisp, you're like, yep, I know exactly what's going on with that tongue. I feel like it's very cut and dry. And when you're doing, when you're even, monitoring progress, you can very easily measure that. And for me, language has always been kind of, nebulous, and it's not my strength. I don't enjoy it as much. I like that kind of concrete nature of, oh, you've got a phonological disorder. Here are my, 3 therapeutic techniques that I can use. I'm going to pick the best one for you. Or if you have a motor speech disorder, great. I've got my bag of tricks here. I know exactly what to do with you. And so for me, it was just much more cut and dry as far as the assessment and then the treatment.
Yeah, I agree.
definitely agree with that too.
Yeah.
But in your defense too, in our defense, I think a lot of times when you are working on motor speech and speech sounds, you're still targeting language too. Like,
Absolutely, that's true.
so it's okay. You're still doing
Right.
language.
There's
You
only
know,
so many Z words.
Absolutely.
Zest.
zest.
I just looked up vocabulary words alphabetically is how I do
Special
that.
needs kids don't know what zest is, but
Right.
you know what? It's a good teaching opportunity.
Now they know. There's only
So I don't know how many fancy cupcakes they're making at home, but maybe maybe they should be making some zesty
right.
cupcakes.
I'm all for it.
Michael's uncle put some orange zest in a pancake, and she said, "Oh, well, Carl, you a genius."
Oh,
And it's been like a big family story forever. So you know what? Zest will take you a long way.
complaining about the word zest. I actually like that word.
Zest.
The Z and the S
Right.
and the T. So that's a nice little tongue tip word for
Right.
you.
It's
so.
very good.
Not
It's a good-
complaining.
It's a good word. And I like
Good.
when I'm working on S and T too, because then that's that vowel that's going to pull us all back a little bit more.
Good.
Nice.
Articulation.
Yeah.
That's what I gotta say.
I love speech sound disorders and perception and phonology because, like you said, it's quite cut and dry. And then also, sometimes when you're in this, you're like, is this phony? Are we doing anything? Do you need speech therapy? Like, but then you have a kid that's got all these speech sound errors, and you're like, yes, you belong here, and I know what to do. So,
Right.
like, it just gives you that like, confidence.
Well, and I feel like too, even with parents, they can tell like, oh my gosh, yes, I can understand my child, or no, I can't, and they can hear improvement really quickly too. And that's the other thing. I feel like with speech sound disorders, a lot of times, unless it's more, really severe motor speech disorder, these kids make progress pretty quickly if you're doing effective therapy. So that's another thing I love. I feel like they can progress really fast. That's so much fun to see.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I agree with that so much. It's like the biggest confidence booster. I'm to a point where people tell me I'm amazing and say thank you, and I don't even say anything because I'm like, this was not. We really just repeated the same thing. I told her to stare at my face 1,000 times, and it worked. I just brought Barbies. Like I didn't do anything here, but yeah, like when parents send you videos of their kid just like talking, and everyone finds them so much clearer. It is a great feeling.
Well, they make us look good, that's for sure.
Yes.
That's
I
good.
hear you.
Mhm.
Like, I am a hit at the family parties.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. When those secondhand, further removed relatives come back in 6 months, and they're like, "Whoa, they sound
Right.
so much better."
Yes.
It's like, well, I go to Miss Maria now on Tuesday.
It's always the parties. The parents always come back and say it's the parties. They're like, we had a party this week, and everyone said how clear he was.
Because the family that hasn't seen them in 3, 4, 5 months can
Right.
hear the difference as opposed to mom and dad who hear them every day or
Right.
every other day.
I'll even tell my parents too when they start with me, make some recordings of how your child is talking now, and in 6 months let's look back and
I
see
like
what
that.
is the difference. And sometimes you forget, even I forget. I've seen kids for months and years, and you go back and you happen to hear a recording, you're like, oh my gosh, that's right. I forgot how much improvement you've made. So that's always encouraging.
That's such a great tip. I love that tip.
Speaking of tips.
Should we go into tips or tricks?
Oh,
Or what do you mean by tips?
that's what I meant. I thought
Okay.
we should all share a
Speech
speech sound production tip and therapy, and then we should see if Amy's got anything she'd like to plug, which I think she does, and then
we'll call it a day. Okay, I guess I'll go first. Well, I recently have but I really like when you're working on the S sound to do the word C, because your lip is back already for the E because of the co-articulation, and then I like to pair it with the mirror. And then it was great because when you played the game and you could apply that word, ooh, let me see, when you're playing a game, like the way I did it, we did a fishing game. So, ooh, let's do that word again, see. And it could work in Spanish too, for yes. So
there you go.
double whammy of why I like the word see.
Yeah,
Perfect. I love
we
it.
have dynamic assessment.
It's just a good word, and the jaw is already up. right? For E, we're not dropping it, so just their tongue is right where it needs to be, and the jaw is still here. So
I like the long E. It's one of my favorite sounds for practicing. So I'll do my tip next, and then our headliner, Amy Graham, will do her.
our headline.
She's our
I'm gonna
headliner.
have some Parmesan cheese here.
Oh, you like good Parmesan. So my tip is I'm starting with all new preschoolers because it's summertime and now I have a new caseload and I'm going to a new school next year too. But I haven't had preschoolers in a year. Last year I was only in elementary school. So I'm going back to preschool and I'm learning that like, oh, we have to start from square one, which is like not something as familiar to me because like I said, I was in a preschool for 3 years in a row. Like I was there 3 years in a row. So all those kids knew me. And I was in elementary school for 2 years. So I didn't have that many new clients. And my tip here is in the beginning, all I'm trying to get them to do is to look at what I'm saying, repeat what I want them to say, and then I give them the reinforcement.
Yes.
And they're a little bit, it's too early, too soon to work on perfection. I don't correct anything. As long as they're looking what I'm saying and they're approximating what I'm doing, we're moving on and they're getting the reward. I do not intend to correct anyone, not even next week, maybe the week after that.
You're setting up the rules and
Yes.
expectations of speech.
Yes.
Say something.
You
get
get
At that age. That's a great, that's so important at that age, is just set the expectation for what those kids need to be doing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's it. Just everyone calm, hold your horses. Just make sure that they're looking, they're vocalizing, and you're giving something. And then once they get comfortable with you, then you can start bossing them around and like asking them to
Guiding
make
them. You say boss around. I know you mean guiding them.
I
Directives.
am pretty bossy.
I mean, we
Today
all are, no?
with my girl who loves me, she was doing yeah, and I was like, I have told you to stick out your tongue. What is it that you're doing? You are not sticking out your tongue. Let me see that tongue. And that's how I talk to them, and they just giggle, and they like it. Yeah, but
Okay.
no more
If
yada
they're happy
yada.
though.
Yeah.
I always say if they feel happy in speech, then we're having a good speech session.
What's your tip or trick, Amy?
Okay, so I'm going to give you my best tip for a lateral lisp.
Oh,
Oh,
wow. This
wow.
is we should have a whole, can you come back and do a whole lateral list?
You can totally do that because, well, let me tell you, I have been, actually, I'm super excited about it because I've been developing a new set of Bjorn speech cards. To specifically, they're going to, hopefully we're crossing our fingers, but I think they should be ready by Asha.
Good. That'll be so good. Yeah.
I know, so excited. But these are cue cards that are specifically geared towards remediating lateralizations. So my biggest tip, and it kind of inspired this whole deck of cards, is basically when you get a child who lateralizes, they have to relearn an entire new motor plan for this new S sound because they do not know how to get the sides of their tongue to anchor against their molars, which is what you need to do for the right kind of airflow to make a good S.
Right.
Yeah. And so what I have told all my kids is forget about S. We're not learning S anymore. We're not going to do S. A lot of the kids that I see, they've been through years of speech therapy.
Right.
And they're kind of almost, the S is kind of okay, but it's not, completely corrected. And so I always tell them we're done with S, forget about S. We're going to make an entirely new sound. And just that idea of the fact that they're done with that old sound kind of does something, and it switches in their brain to where, oh, okay, I'm going to do something different with my tongue now. And so it's let me kind of shape that sound. Because a lot of times when I'll say, okay, just say this S sound, but make sure your tongue is doing this and that and over here and touching here and doing this. And then the minute you put that sound into a word, they lateralize again. And they just, it's so hard to generalize. So what I do is we make a little symbol, and these new speech sound cues are going to have its own brand new symbol for our new S sound. And we just learn how to say it, and this is the new sound we're making. Forget S, we're not doing S anymore. We're going to do this sound instead. And usually that has been the key to these kids generalizing the new S sound, the non-lateralized S. So that's my tip. No matter how you teach your kids not to lateralize, the straw method, the butterfly method, whatever, call it something different. Don't call it S anymore. Call it something else.
Love it. That's great.
That's it.
Yeah. I only had one lateralizer in my whole career.
Really?
It was during my
Really?
CF, and I was clueless.
They can be tricky.
I had no clue, and not only did I have no clue, but nobody else in the office had a clue.
Okay.
And they decided that it was best for this kid who was returning to see me because I'm so young and energetic and upbeat, and I was so drill-based and I still am drill-based. But they decided that the person who had next to zero experience was better than any of them trying to do it further. So,
You know why they did that is because nobody wants to work with laterals.
right.
I'll take a lateral kid.
It scares the heck out of everybody. I don't know, it just does. It's just a tricky one to remediate.
Sometimes I just feel like, give me any kid. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, let's just see what happens. That's how I feel like at this point.
That's how I feel at this point. So
Yeah.
I'll
I'm
be-
like, if I can't, then I should know.
right. I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. So are you in collaboration with Bjorn Speech Card?
Yeah, I've been talking with Jenny for a couple of months. She kind of reached out to me because I did some videos on my Instagram
Yeah, you
about
have some. You're the one who inspired me. You should have an affiliate code because I bought those because of you.
Oh man, I'll have to talk to Jenny about that one. That's awesome. I'm so glad.
Yeah,
used
and
those
I just got them last week.
Oh, aren't they? Are you using them a ton?
I just got them, and I have used them a ton. I've used them like 4 times already because I just got them. But yeah, they're great. I feel like they're better. They're better for my bigger kids, like my little kids.
Yeah.
I haven't really found my way with using them so much yet.
You have to be more creative for sure with the little guys, for sure.
Yeah, with the little So for them, I feel like I haven't found my sweet spot, but I like my 5 or older kids with it.
Uh-huh.
I do have one. Do you have a favorite card?
Oh my gosh. I like them all. I can't think of a favorite one off the top of my head. I'd have to bring them out. Do you?
They are all great, and now they all are great. Pause. I'm gonna edit this out.
Okay.
What about O? Do you remember the O card?
I do remember the O card. Yeah.
What is it called?
Isn't it O? What is it?
Lady O face.
It is not.
Yes, it is.
Are you serious?
Okay, it's
Hold on. Wait.
that. It's Lady O.
Are you for real? There's
Yeah,
no
I'm
way.
like, speech pathologists are so dirty.
Well, I've had drinks with Jenny, so
That's all I can say. I mean it in a good way that we all.
Oh my gosh.
Wait, what is it?
Lady O sound. Long O like in toe.
Or orgasm.
like you didn't have to say it, Deb. We all knew it. We're all inferencing. Like, Deb doesn't
Oh my gosh. That's hilarious. Oh, I'm going to be texting Jenny immediately. That is hysterical.
Next meeting.
Well,
Just
I missed that part. Sorry.
in your next meeting, just put it on the table.
I will. I know. I'm going to have to.
What are we putting on the table?
I might be
So
like
Jenny.
Lady O sound. It's just the fun. I'm like, I hope Mike doesn't see this. He's gonna make fun of me.
Oh my gosh. That's hysterical.
I'm just looking here.
It could be
Okay.
oatmeal.
I would think.
I don't know.
I was thinking octopus, like oh.
It has to be O.
And that has to be like a O.
Anyway,
Version 2.
now here we go. I'm gonna edit this out.
Okay.
I agree with you. They're all wonderful. I especially like the mean cat picture for the F sound.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
That was
I think I like the ah sound a lot because it's just the kids automatically know. Well, I like that. I think with most of these, the kids automatically know what the sound is almost before you even teach them.
Right, and they start doing the picture stuff. Their tongue is wiggling around. That little girl today, who I'm constantly telling her to stick out her tongue, I just showed her the card of the tongue buzzy, the buzzy tongue. And
Yeah.
she was sticking out her tongue. I'm like, so now you do it?
Yep.
That was good. I'm gonna use the buzzy tongue for the L a little bit.
Totally, yeah.
But we did have the L out the singing when we were doing la 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 for like a
Okay.
good 15 minutes straight.
Let's see what they have.
But yeah.
Okay.
So before we get out of here, I was wondering if you have any sort of quote or mantra or anything that you tell yourself either all the time or recently that helps you get what you need to get done and get through your day and things like that. Do you have any quotes or mantras that you?
Oh man, I wish I were a quote or mantra person.
Okay.
That would have been great. You know, I don't know. I just feel like I'm always kind of, it's hard to try to find the balance, especially when, you know, you're working out of your home like I do. So it's always a struggle to keep, you know, family separate from work, and especially when you're working out of the house and you have all these online things going on and social media. But I don't know. I just try my best to remind myself when I'm home, and after 5 o'clock, the computer goes off. No more report writing.
That's good. After what time?
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock. Nice. I like both of your quotes. After 5 o'clock, the computer goes off, and it's always a struggle.
Yeah, it's always. I think that should be the number one. It's always a struggle.
Always a struggle. Yeah.
I was
None
going
of
to
this
say,
is easy.
combine those two. It's always a struggle after 5 o'clock when the computer goes off. Yes. Because then you're like, new job, momminess,
Right.
mommy time.
And I don't have that.
Not job, you know what I mean. That's wrong word. Wrong connotations with the word job. New responsibilities.
Right. Well, there's lots of duties.
Lots of duties.
Lots of duties.
Yes.
Both, all the kind of duties, I'm sure. Your kids are old, so they don't have those.
Very true.
Okay, well, thank you so much for spending this night with us
Yes,
and
it was so nice.
bearing with us through all those technical difficulties.
This was fun, girls. Thanks so much.
Before we go, though, Amy, please tell the listeners where they can find you on Instagram or any other social media.
So my Instagram is Graham Speech Therapy, and you can find my oral mic exam at grahamspeechtherapy.com. And I've got a 10% discount code.
Woo-wee!
Yes.
Whatever month that this particular podcast airs.
Okay.
So I'll let you ladies decide that. But the discount code will be 10% off if you use the code Wine and Cheese.
Wine and cheese. All right, so you heard that, folks. You got to go get that oral facial examination because it's a therapy saver and a lifesaver. Yeah. So coupon code Wine and Cheese.
You got it.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Good night.
Hey everyone, it's Deb. I'm back. Just thought I'd come on here to let you all know that I know I didn't edit out that part I said I was going to edit out because my mouse battery is dead and I can't find a replacement. So I'm sure it's fine, but don't email me saying it's there still, I know. And check us out on Patreon. Have a good night.